Okay. Camera rolling? Camera's rolling. Ta-da!
Robert, what's your idea for today?
Yes. I think we should set the record for the world's longest helmet hot dog throw. Don't you miss this? Hot dog helmet hot dog. Hot dog helmet throw.
Hot dog helmet.
Helmet hot dog throw.
Which is it?
I don't know. The
Tell
game-
us, vote.
Which
Tell
one it
us
is.
which one it is. Is it hot
Yeah.
dog helmet or helmet hot dog?
Yeah. Anyway, I'll be the thrower. We only have one helmet, so there was only one
Is
with
it
us.
because this is pink and I'm a green?
Yep. Yeah? Okay. But we need to like work our way up to set the record. And so I think we need to like start with some smaller throws, work our way up. That looks really uncomfortable. And then we'll set the record. You ready? Okay. All right.
Okay.
These hot dogs are pretty expired. So, don't eat it. Here we go. Ready? Let's go! First try. Oh yeah! Here we go. Hey, that was good. I think we gotta go farther there.
I
you?
think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the storage.
I'm gonna go over there.
Where's over there?
The office.
The office?
Yeah. You got this.
I gotta warm up the arm,
got
but I think I
this.
can make it. All right,
Okay.
let's do this.
Okay.
Premiumbeat.com.
You ready?
Premiumbeat.com.
Okay.
Premiumbeat.com. Premiumbeat.com.
Okay.
Premiumbeat.com.
Gas tank.
Premiumbeat.com.
Hey, you ready? Yeah, totally. All right.
Premiumbeat.com. Premiumbeat.com.
Did you catch it? You caught it? Let's go! Woo!
6 feet.
6 feet.
6 feet. 6 feet.
Woo! That was a run. World's longest hot dog helmet throw.
We did it!
We did it!
Woo!
Not without your guys' help. Hey, we're so excited for our midweek programs. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
See, I can't even, it's fine. It's fine. You guys want to know how to make ice? First you need a tray like this. And fill it up with water. Gotta make sure they're all evenly filled. Otherwise you get lame ice cubes. You don't want that. Then, open the freezer. Put the ice in. Don't spill it like I wrote. Hopefully it's not that hard for you. And then, in a couple hours, you have ready-made ice to put in all your beverages.
What's up, Highlife? Good to see you all tonight. I'm so glad that you're here. I wanted to just say hi. I'm not speaking tonight, but I wanted to say hi. I wanted to review last week, and I wanted to challenge you to evaluate a couple things in your life. So we are in this series called Not Normal, and this is our 4th week in this series. And so last week we talked about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and we talked about how he found a safe place and safe people, and how he told God what he wanted and surrendered to his will. And so I want to know, did you find a safe place to go to this week? If you did, if you're watching us live, you can comment in the comment section over here. If you're watching this after the video is posted, you can comment in the comment section down below. But I want to know, how did this week go for you? How are you doing? Did you find a safe place? Did you find safe people? And what does that look like for you? I love you guys. I'm so excited to see you again, but hopefully you guys can come to one of our Zoom Hangouts. In case you don't know that, we've been doing Zoom Hangouts at 7 p.m. before the Highlife message premieres, and so if you need more information about that, check out our social media accounts, and I would love to see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. at our Zoom Hangout. Hopefully you can connect with your small group throughout the week. And we have lots of exciting plans for stuff coming out on YouTube and different stuff. So keep an eye on our channel. I'm going to pass it over to Taylor.
Hi, Highlife. I'm so glad to see you guys. And by see you guys, I mean see the phone that I am trusting you guys are looking at on your own screen. So, hi. It's been a weird season right now, right? We can all acknowledge that. It's quarantine, and right now it feels like so much of what we're doing in day-to-day life is just waiting, and waiting, whether that's waiting for your parents to get home, or waiting for the next meal, waiting for the next project, or just waiting for this time to be over. And I think it can be really tempting and okay sometimes to just want to look at the waiting and try and fast forward and get excited about what's to come. And I think sometimes we really need to be doing that and getting excited about what's to come. But I also know that God is still working in the waiting in us, and there is still value in being present, and we should still try to enjoy and appreciate the time we have, even though it feels like we're waiting. So today we're going to be in Joshua 6. And so Joshua was one of the prophets in the Old Testament, and God used him for a lot of different prophecies and miracles, and we're going to talk today about the walls of Jericho came crumbling down. So I'm going to start reading from Joshua 6, verse 1 for you guys. So, now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went out, and no one came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, everyone straight in. So Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests, and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it." And he ordered the army, "Advance, march around the city with an armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord." When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All this time, the trumpets were sounding. But Joshua had commanded the army, "Do not give a war cry. Do not raise your voice. Do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout." So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the army returned to camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets kept sounding. So on the second day, they marched around the city once and returned to camp. They did this for 6 days. On the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except that on the day they circled the city 7 times, the 7th time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, "Shout, for the Lord has given to you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble to it. All the silver and gold must be sacrificed to the Lord and go into the treasury." When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed, so that everyone charged in, and they took the city, and they devoted the city to the Lord, and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. And so this is kind of an interesting story we see, right? God is using Joshua as the prophet, his messenger, to lead these men around the city with these walls. And you know, when I was reading this story, I couldn't look at it without seeing all the waiting the people had to be doing, right? They were marching around the city. Not 1 day or 2, but for 6 days just marching. And as an army, that was probably pretty tricky and pretty boring, and a lot of time spent thinking, what's happening? And waiting for that final moment, right? Waiting for that final day when the trumpet sounded and they got to see the walls collapse. And I think right now, a lot of us are in a similar time of waiting, right? And I think there's a bunch of things we can get from this passage. The first thing is that God's plan often looks differently than we would expect it to, right? Sometimes we think we know what's going to happen in our lives, and sometimes we're right. Like you think, oh, I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to talk to these people, and I'm going to learn about Jesus. And sometimes it's different. Oh, I can't go to church right now because we have to stay home. Or, oh, I thought I was going to be having my season of soccer or baseball right now, but I don't get to. And I think it can be easy to feel discouraged, right? when God's plan doesn't look like what we expect it to or what we want it to, it can be a really hard time. And in that hard time, God is still with us, and he is still using that. And that brings us to our second point. The waiting is part of God's plan, not outside of it. And sometimes it's really hard to see that, right? Sometimes it's easy to look at our life in the big events or in the peaks of, oh, this is when that starts. This is when I get to see my friends. This is when I get to go to the beach. This is the day we're going on vacation. This is the day school starts. And it's easy to look at the things in the future and try and skip to them or ignore what's happening now. But God is still using those times of the waiting. And it's so valuable. For some of you guys, maybe he's using the waiting to work on patience. Maybe he's using the waiting for you to get to show your siblings love beyond what you could of your own self, right? Because it's hard to be living with people and getting on each other's nerves and not feel like you have an escape. And there's a lot of other things in the waiting that God's doing in our lives, and it's cool because we don't always get to see that. And while it's hard when we don't get to see what God's doing, it's also really exciting because the things that God is doing in our lives and in the community and in this world are so far beyond what we could ever imagine. We don't know how many people sat with their families and got to see the messages for Easter or for Good Friday. But that is so cool. And we don't know why we have to stay and why this virus happened. But God is with us in it, and he is working so diligently and so faithfully in it. Our next thing is that it's important to be obedient in the waiting. A couple weeks ago, Katrina talked about how even in this time, it's important that we have a hold of our sin and we don't give ourselves an excuse to sin. And even when it's hard, that doesn't change the fact that God has called us to obedience. And whether that's obedience to your parents or your teachers or whoever in your life, we are still called to obedience in that. And our last point, God's timing is always perfect. Always. The soldier and the people, the Israelites, waited and they marched. And on that seventh day, the walls fell down. And God used that his people could take over the city. And God's timing was perfect then. It's perfect right now, and it'll be perfect forever. And we don't get to see all of the ways that works, but I can promise you that God's timing is perfect in your life. And when we follow Jesus, sometimes we get to see those pieces. Sometimes you might feel like a stirring in your heart, I should reach out to this person. And then you do, and it's exactly what they needed. Or you experience somebody reaching out to you at just the right time. Or a message that the pastor or someone teaches, and you're like, were they talking to me? Because it hits so close to home, because God's timing is always perfect. Even when we're waiting, even when we feel stuck. And we get to hold on to that hope and that truth. So I'm going to pray for us, and then you guys can go into small group. God, thank you for your truth. Thank you that you are good, even in the waiting, even in the times that it feels like we're just struggling to get by. You are still with us, and you are still in us. I just pray that we would be able to seek you and seek to be obedient and patient in this time, and that we would be able to see glimpses of what you're doing, because it's all ultimately for your glory, God. In your name, amen.
What's up, Highlife Online? Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to encourage each and every one of you to connect with an e-group. Your small group leaders are going to be connecting with you. They want to still have face-to-face time with you, even if it's over technology. And so, please reach out to your small group leader, connect with them. They want to have small groups with you right after this message is shown. And for those of you who don't have an e-group or want to connect to a community, go ahead and comment below this video, send us a DM, send me an email, reach out to us. I want to help you get connected and stay connected to community in this time. I love you so much. I'm praying for you. See you later.